Hello, crafty friends, and welcome to my channel, Create with Kalia. I'm Kalia. Today I'm going to be scrapbooking these pictures of one of our annual traditions at Halloween time. I've printed off one 5x7 and four pictures that are just under 3 inches by 4 inches. I'm using the Spooky Sweet paper collection for this layout, and as I page through the different patterns on the paper, I'm trying to get an idea of which patterns I might want to use for my layout. I really love that first sheet that includes the petunia pop, and I also really like this pattern that includes stars and different types of candy. I do like this orange pattern as well, but I'm not sure that it's going to go with the petunia pop. I also really love this window paper and this pumpkin pie paper. I think that the little trick-or-treaters on this sheet are so cute, and I especially love the bats dressed as ghosts, but I don't think that it's going to work for this particular layout. The gray paper may work depending on the other patterns that I choose, and I do want to keep the cut-apart sheet in mind. I also love that this paper collection includes two matching sheets of die cuts. For this layout, I'm also going to be using a sketch. This video is part of a collaboration with Jama Malmi's Paper Divas team. The sketch that you see was created by Jama and shared with us so that we can create a scrapbook layout of whichever pictures and papers that we would like to use for the sketch. If you've never used a sketch before, it can be a really helpful jumping off point to get started on creating a layout since all of the dimensions are provided for you. Sketches will often contain a guide that shows you what dimensions to cut your paper to and also give you an idea of where to place your embellishments. I'm starting my layout off with two pieces of white willow cardstock. I'm also bringing in the star paper from the Modern Christmas Specialty Designer Series paper pack. When I started looking at the sketch, I knew that I wanted to use the Modern Christmas star paper as the mat behind my 5x7 photo. I love that it has the foiled stars in the background because that feels perfect to me for a Halloween layout. I also really love this candy paper, but I don't know that I like it behind the star paper. So I'm going to trade that out for the black pattern paper, and that still doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to try bringing in the pumpkin pie paper instead. As soon as I bring in the pumpkin pie, I can see that that's pulling some of the colors out of my photo much better and helping make my photo pop, but the black is still not working for me as the strip that's part of the sketch. So I'm going to trade that out as well for a different paper. Before I do that, I decide that I want to start cutting down my papers to match the sketch so that I can get a better idea of what paper to use for the strip. Since so much of the white willow will be showing, I think it's easier to get an idea of what the strip will look like with my pumpkin pie paper cut down. However, I'm still not liking any of the options until I get back to the petunia pop. I'm really liking the combination of the pumpkin pie and the petunia pop together. I've also backed my layout with black cardstock per the sketch. And now I'm ready to lay my photos down and start working on matting my photos. I'm going to be using more of the star pattern from Modern Christmas to mat my photographs. I initially cut a really narrow mat, but I want to make sure that some of the stars are showing, so I'm going to cut the mats a little bit larger to make sure that some of the stars from the paper will be visible on the mat. Now I'm trying to decide what the final piece of paper from the sketch will be. Although I love that candy paper and keep going back to it, it just doesn't work for me with the star paper. I'm going to try out all of the different options again, and I finally settle on the window paper as being the best option for that section of the layout. Now that I have most of my pattern papers down, I'm going to do some ink blending to start building up my embellishment areas. I use my Petunia Pop ink pad and a blending brush to start building up the three areas where I'm going to have my embellishment clusters. I start in the top left corner of the left-hand page, and then I'm going to move my 5x7 photo back into position. That helps me determine where I want to start adding the ink for the second embellishment cluster. It also helps give me an idea of how much more ink I might need to add to the first area. Remember that when you do ink blending, you want to start by tapping your blending brush on the ink pad and then tap a little bit off so that you don't end up with harsh lines. You also want to make sure that you're light-handed and start adding ink in a circular motion, which will also help prevent harsh lines from forming. The ink that you apply will dry back slightly later than what you initially apply, so keep that in mind as well. On my layout, I've added ink to where I plan on having my second embellishment cluster and where I plan on having my journaling. Now I'm adding to the third area where I plan on having an embellishment cluster and my title for this layout. Once I'm satisfied with my ink blending, I'm going to bring in the metallic textures rub-ons. I'm using the star pattern from one of the gold sheets to start building up my embellishment clusters some more. If you saw my latest video, I used a lot of the metallic textures rub-ons in the Christmas layouts that I was working on. I absolutely love these. I think that this product is so fun to work with, and they're really easy to apply. The rub-ons are very sticky, so you can use a bone folder to apply them, but they also stick just as well if you run your finger over to apply them. Next, I'm going to bring in the Fright Night die set. This die set is going to be perfect for creating some of the additional embellishments that I want for my page. I like the idea of adding a spider web in this corner along with a couple of the other places on my page. This will probably end up being my main embellishment for my embellishment clusters. I've now cut out several of the spider webs and also used the alphabet a la mode die set to cut out my title for this layout. I used the alphabet a la mode dies to also cut around some of the spider web to see if I could fit it into the letters of my title, which I thought would be a neat effect. However, once I have it on the page, I feel like it makes those letters too hard to read, so I decide not to do that. Back on the metallic textures rub-on sheet, I use that small area to cut out some of the tiny dots, and I've cut out spiders from the die set, then use the metallic rub-ons dots to create a little spot on the spider. It may be hard to see in the video, but make sure to check out my close-up photos on Instagram and you'll be able to see the spider much better. I've also gone to the die cut sheet and I'm starting to work on creating my embellishment clusters. I've die cut out the banner from the die set and then stamped Eat, Drink, and Be Scary from the stamp set in tuxedo black memento ink. I'm starting to pull in more of the dies from the die sheet. I want to make sure that I have similar colors in all three embellishment clusters to help them feel balanced. So that's part of why I'm adding some Granny Apple Green cardstock to the upper left and right hand embellishments. I really like the cauldron with the boiling potion, but because it has the Granny Apple Green in it, I needed to bring some Granny Apple Green into my other two embellishment areas. The tag that you see is a tag that I die cut out of the same Fright Night die set, and then I simply cut the tag down so that I would have an additional embellishment that I could use for my embellishment clusters. Putting together my embellishment clusters is often the part of scrapbooking that takes me the longest. I like to make sure that I bring in a lot of different stamps and dies when I'm creating a layout so that I have ideas and options that I can choose from. Sometimes I'll cut extra dies, and if I don't end up using them, I'll put them back into the packaging that has the die so that the next time I use it, I know if I've already cut some things out that I might be able to use for a new layout. Now that I have an idea of what I'm going to be using in each of the embellishment clusters, I'm ready to start putting things in their permanent spots. I really like how these metallic textures rub-ons look in this area and how they add some shine to my page. I've also cut some additional rub-ons out that I'm going to be putting into the other embellishment cluster areas as well. I really like the spider webs that I've put at the bottom of the page where the two pages will connect, but I realized that I don't like that there's a gap. So I decide to cut out another one of the spider webs, and then I'm going to add it to the page, and I'll cut the spider web at the edge of the page and then add the other half of it to my right hand page to make the spider web look complete. I'm really happy with how that looks. I also have not mentioned yet, but I'm going to be using a 3x4 flip flap on the middle of the three photos to add two additional photos to this layout. As a reminder, this layout is also part of a collaboration, so make sure you stay tuned till the end so that you'll be able to access a playlist of all of the other layouts that were created using this same sketch. A full list of all of the supplies that I used to create this layout will be located in the description box for the video, so make sure to check that out once you're done viewing. And with that, I think this layout is complete. I'll bring in the flip flap, and this is what that will look like on the page once I put it onto my page protector. This area will be where I add journaling at a later date. And this is a close-up of what my layout looks like. I'm really happy with these embellishment clusters and think that this layout perfectly captures how excited my kids get to have mummy dogs every Halloween, which are essentially pigs in a blanket. My kids look forward to coming over every Halloween when they know that mummy dogs are on the menu. I love how quickly the embellishment clusters came together using dies from the die sheet, and the gold foiling from the paper and embellishments adds the extra something to complete the look. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day and craft on.